बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। जब थोड़ी सी ब्रेडफोर्ड चलते हैं जी, ब्रेडफोर्ड वेस्ट की तरफ चलते हैं और वहाँ पर जॉर्ज गैलोवे और उन्होंने इलेक्शन हारा। जॉर्ज गैलोवे कुछ अर्सा कराची में भी रहे और बड़े आउटस्पोकन है एंड ही हैज़ बीन वेरी क्रिटिकल, बहुत क्रिटिकल रहे हैं टूवर्ड्स एमक्यूएम। सो उनसे ज़रा बात कर लें और उनकी जगह जो जिसने सीट जीती लेबर पार्टी की है वो खातून नाज शाह उनका नाम है, उन्होंने इलेक्शन जीता उनसे। और गैलोवे ने उन पे थोड़े से इल्ज़ामात लगाए। एज यू नो, कैंपेन जब शुरू होती है कुछ ना कुछ इल्ज़ामात ज़रूर लगाए जाते हैं, लेकिन नाज शाह मेड इट और जॉर्ज गैलोवे इलेक्शन हार गए। कुछ नज़र जॉर्ज गैलोवे की रहती है टूवर्ड्स द मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी इन यूके, स्पेशली ब्रेडफोर्ड वेस्ट में, और पाकिस्तान पे भी उनकी नज़र रहती है। पाकिस्तान के अंदरूनी हालात पर भी, पॉलिटिकल हालात पर भी उनकी नज़र रहती है। सो मैंने सोचा कि आज जॉर्ज गैलोवे से कुछ बात कर लें। कोशिश मैंने ज़रूर की कि इसमें एमक्यूएम के लोग भी शामिल हों और उनसे रिक्वेस्ट भी की गई कि एमक्यूएम वाले अगर आ जाएं तो उनसे भी बात कर ली जाए ताकि एक उनका भी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू मिल जाए, लेकिन एमक्यूएम वाले रिलक्टेंट थे। सो लेट्स टॉक टू जॉर्ज गैलोवे जी और उनसे बात करते हैं, उनसे पूछते हैं कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज गोइंग ऑन इन ब्रेडफोर्ड वेस्ट जी, स्पेशली उसके बाद जब वो इलेक्शन हार गए जी। जॉर्ज, हाउ आर यू?
Well, considering the circumstances, by the grace of God, I'm good. Thank you very much. The sun is shining. I'm back in London, surrounded by my many children, mashallah, and feeling a little bit better than I did yesterday and the day before.
So you have like lots of children in London. They are putting up in London, not in Bradford?
Well, of course, I lived in both places, in London during the week and in Bradford at the weekends. But no more. I'm back in my London house now.
Okay. So, what are your plans now? What do you plan to do now? You are a politician, but you don't have a seat now. You lost the elections.
Well, that's right. Of course, I'm not the only politician to have lost his seat, and many politicians in many elections lose their seats. The important thing is that they don't lose heart and that they don't lose their principles. And I can assure you neither will happen to me. I have many other things to do. I'm about to release a film, a 90-minute feature-length documentary on Tony Blair called The Killings of Tony Blair, which I think will be a very big success. I'm hoping so in any case. I'm still presenting my television programs, 3 television programs on 3 different stations. And of course I'll write. And who knows what the next political, electoral battle will be.
What is this movie all about, Killing of Tony Blair?
Well, it is the biggest crowd-funded film in British history and the largest crowdfunding budget for a documentary film in the world. Such is the appetite for bringing Tony Blair to book. Putting him in the dock, if not literally the dock, then metaphorically the dock. It deals with 3 killings. First of all, the killing of the Labour Party as we knew it, its transformation from one thing into another, a metamorphosis. The second killing is 1 million people in Iraq, an uncounted number in Afghanistan, and in the extremism that's now cascading around the world, many, many more corpses have been laid in the ground. And the third killing is the financial killing that he has been making out of the previous 2 killings, which has netted him £100 million in just 7 years since leaving office. So there's a lot of interest in such a story and a lot of public interest in learning the lessons from such a story. So it will be coming to cinemas and on some kind of pay-per-view platform, Netflix or one of the others, quite soon, within the next month or so.
Hmm. So this is very interesting. And Can you come up with a precise date about this documentary which you're coming up with?
Well, I've just returned after 6 weeks steady day-to-day, 24/7 really, campaigning in Bradford, so I'm behind the curve a little bit. But tomorrow I'm going to view a 2-hour edit of the film. We had tens of hours. So it's now down to 2 hours. So half an hour still to be lopped off. And then that will be finished. It will go for the various technical colorization and sound coordination and so on. But tomorrow, God willing, I'll see a good percentage of what's finally going to be in the film, how it's finally going to look like.
You said that in this documentary, you're like addressing this area also about Iraq. And
yes.
What exactly are you like focusing on Iraq in this particular documentary?
Well, it's chronological to some extent, not entirely. It starts with Mr. Blair's capture of the Labour Party on the death of the previous leader, John Smith, and how he set about murdering the Labour Party as it previously was. I was a member of it for 36 years and a member of Parliament for it for almost 20 years. And so that killing is particularly important to me, but probably not as important to the international audience. So it moves quite swiftly on to the second stage, which is the killing of all these people in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in drone attacks in Pakistan, all the deaths caused by the so-called war on terror, which has really been a war of terror, and all the extremism that it has spawned indirectly, but as a result of what happened. And then I would say the lion's share of the film deals with the financial killing. Mr. Blair is now working for, it's almost difficult to count the number of grisly regimes, dictatorships, for whom he's now working, with whom he's now profiting, including many of them in the Middle East, which is a clear conflict of interest, of course, given his position as the Middle East peace envoy, the least successful peace envoy in history, but financially he's really done extremely well, transforming himself into one of the richest men in the country. And it was my duty to defend the community, to defend the Muslims, and to defend the Pakistanis in Bradford, and that's what I tried to do.
Okay, there was a time in 1994 when you visited Iraq, and
yes.
you made a speech in favor of Saddam Hussein, and you then said that it was not for Saddam Hussein, it was for the people of Iraq, and
yes.
you said that and quote unquote, "I salute your courage, sir. I salute your courage, your strength, your courage." Was this for "I salute your courage and your strength"? Were these comments for Saddam Hussein or the people of Iraq?
Well, they were for the people of Iraq, as I've explained, I don't know how many thousands of times now. And how little did I know then how much courage, how much strength, how much indefatigability they were going to have to find. Because, of course, they endured a further decade of economic sanctions, which were killing Iraqi children at the rate of 1 every 7 minutes of every day and night. And then they were invaded again, occupied, and now are atomized into dozens of militia fiefdoms instead of a single Iraqi state. And of course, although there was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq before Bush and Blair invaded it, not only is there now a huge presence of Al-Qaeda, in fact, Al-Qaeda are now moderate compared to the ISIS phenomenon, which has been spawned by Al-Qaeda. So it has been an absolute catastrophe, the whole Iraq story. A catastrophe for Iraq, a catastrophe for the region, a catastrophe for the Ummah, and a catastrophe for the world. That's a pretty strong series of catastrophes. And nobody has been held to account for it. Far from being punished, Mr. Blair has profited. Far from being punished, Mr. Bush is coloring in his books in his presidential library, entirely unmolested. And those of us who stood out against them are the ones who the establishment has unrelentingly tried to punish. But God is greater than all of those, and truth will out. And our film, I hope, is a contribution to that truth.
You testified, I'll just go to the United States again. You testified to the United States Senate in 2005 over alleged illicit payments from the United Nations Oil for Food program. What was that all about?
Well, it's part of the chain of events I've just described. That those who committed the crimes against Iraq and against the world have profited, and none of them have been punished or held to account. And those who stood against them, they have attempted to punish. In the case of my appearance, which I insisted upon making, they didn't call me or even want me to come. I insisted on holding them to account, and if people watch it on YouTube, where tens of millions of people have, it was probably my finest hour. I came there not as the accused, but as the accuser, and pointed to them, dripping in the blood as they were, of what has turned into millions of people, and spoke the truth in the court of the Sultan, which, as you know, is the right thing to do.
Okay. I just want to come to the elections now, because we have very short span over here. I wish we had a longer period. We could have interacted with you, but we have a very short period with us. And as you know, you are a TV show host yourself.
Yes.
Let's come to the Bradford West election field, where you lost the elections from Naz Shah. You made some accusations against Naz, like about forced marriage of Naz, and like about there were some other accusations. I know how things work in the election campaign, but then again, did you really mean those things when you were talking about Naz Shah, or was that just a election campaign slogans?
Well, I'm restricted in what I can say because we have an election petition before the appropriate authorities now to set the result of the election aside. And I can't go into, for legal reasons, the case that we will be making there. But what I can say is that my opponent, now the Member of Parliament, and her media allies were playing into the worst stereotyping of the Pakistani community. You have to know here that Pakistanis are routinely demonized and caricatured as people who are grooming young girls and forcing marriage upon people in defiance not only of the law but of the religion. That every Pakistani in Bradford is somehow touched by drug dealing and all kinds of illicit and vice, illicit behavior and vice. All of that was played into as a narrative. And it was my duty to defend the community, to defend the Muslims, and to defend the Pakistanis in Bradford, and that's what I tried to do.
Then what happened, if I may ask? If you were doing so much for the Pakistani community in Bradford West especially, what went wrong and where? Why did you lose the elections?
Well, as I say, we're trying to have the results set aside so I'm restricted in what I can say. But certainly the result came as a shock to us and to everyone who was there, and a surprise, I think, to even my opponents. So it's too early to say. You'll have to wait for the wheels of justice to grind. They grind exceedingly slow, but they grind exceedingly fine, and all will be out in due course.
Was that a surprise for your opponent as well, who won the elections? That's what you're saying?
I don't know about my opponent. It was certainly a surprise to the Labour campaigners in the election, and it's a shock and a surprise to the constituents who went to sleep after casting their votes and woke up to find a result they never in their wildest dreams imagined. The bookmakers had me at 13 to 8 on favourite. That is to say, for those who don't understand these things, a nailed-on, red-hot favourite to win. The exit poll that was released at the close of poll, 10 p.m., had me holding my seat. The journalists began writing that I had held my seat, but that's not what happened. So we'll see in the end.
Do you know how much time will it take to come up with these results, the verdict from wherever the plea is there about this elections?
I don't know. But our petition has to be lodged within 21 days. We're gathering evidence, and well within the 21 days, our petition will be filed. Then it will have legal privilege, and anyone can report on it at will.
Okay, so there's no precise time you can come up with that?
No, I don't.
You know.
And I don't think the investigation needs to take particularly long. But our petition will be lodged within the 21 days, and they have notice of it. The Labour Party has notice of it. And it's then in the hands of the authorities how long it takes.
Yasir Arafat, in his entire life, never ever uttered a single word in the favor of Kashmir. When you were also concerned about Kashmir, you were very close to Yasir Arafat. Did you ever ask him about this thing, or no?
I did, and the answer would be geopolitics.
Galloway, you've been supporting the Palestinian side a lot. The Palestinians, the cause of Palestinians, the Palestinians' right, and why had you been like so outspoken for the Palestinians? Any specific reasons for that?
Well, when I first became involved in the Palestinian issue, which is as long ago as 1975, so exactly 40 years ago, in the midsummer of 40 years ago, 1975, I knew that I would be making rich and powerful enemies. Perhaps I didn't appreciate how rich, how powerful. Perhaps I didn't appreciate how unfaithful some of those who have obligations towards the Palestinians would turn out to be. But I could do no other. And I visited Lebanon in 1977. I met President Arafat, may God have mercy upon him. And he became like an older brother to me. And I became very close to him. I was at his bedside when he died in Paris in the Perse Military Hospital. In the course of those 40 years, I have befriended thousands of Palestinian people, and I think millions have appreciated my efforts. So for me, it's personal as well as political. And I will never stop as long as God gives me breath.
Okay, so what's this attachment with Pakistan? Have you spent some time in Karachi, I believe?
Well, I hold Pakistan's two highest civil awards, the Hilali Pakistan and the Hilali Qaid-e-Azam. The latter for my work on the restoration of democracy in Pakistan in the 1980s, and the former for my work on Kashmir over 30 years. So I have a deep attachment to Pakistan, a deep attachment to the Pakistani community here in Britain. I share many things in common with them in terms of a view of the world and so on. But Karachi is a special place to me. I love the city very much. It's a world city, an iconic city that should be one of the citadels of culture and of prosperity. But of course it is stricken by political violence and organized crime. And the last time I was there, which was in January of last year, for the literary festival, which was a great success, which I hope will continue to be so, I had to be ferried around in a very large phalanx of security forces. And that's a terrible way to view Karachi.
Okay. Coming back to the Yasser Arafat thing and the Palestinian thing, I would like to ask you a question. You know, your closeness with Yasser Arafat, and you regard him very high, and but at the very same time you are concerned about the Kashmir issue. Bradford, there are lots of Kashmiri families putting up in Bradford as well, and they are very much in your constituency. How come Yasser Arafat in his entire life never ever uttered a single word in the favor of Kashmir? When you were also concerned about Kashmir, you were very close to Yasser Arafat. Did you ever ask him about this thing, or no?
I did, and the answer would be geopolitics.
Geopolitics.
The previous regimes in India were a part of, if you like, an international camp of non-alignment and close to the Soviet Union, and Arafat was in part dependent on that camp. It is regrettable that he did not see that India's position then would change, and that in any case one has to speak with principle. One cannot accept that my enemy's enemy is my friend, because your enemy's enemy is not necessarily your friend, and that you must speak up for haqq, for justice, for right, wherever it is being trampled upon, irrespective of it's being trampled upon even by your own family. So it's a matter of great regret to me that I could never persuade him to see that. I'm sure that in his heart he saw it, but as a political statesman hemmed in by many enemies, he had to take his friendships where he could find them. And that's the way it was. It never stopped me. I was coterminously a leader of the struggle for Palestinian rights and a figure in the struggle for the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, because both of those causes were right, and they required me to make a stand on them. The two cases are actually strikingly similar, almost to the month in terms of the catastrophes that they both suffered. The Intifada in Palestine coincides almost exactly with the Intifada in occupied Kashmir, and the atrocities visited upon the occupied people are even worse in Kashmir, considerably worse actually, than suffered by the people in occupied Palestine. So these two issues, which are both issues of post-colonialism, are strikingly similar to me, and I never saw any argument for separating them. Forced the British government to, first of all, explain why they gave a British passport and citizenship to Altaf Hussain, the leader of the MQM.
Okay, I'll continue this particular topic in a bit, but before I go to my next question, you were talking about your visit to Karachi, and you were like guarded and like you were like protected by the guards to see to roam about in the city of Karachi, and you never liked it.
No.
What do you have? What you come up with like very blunt statements against a particular organization, a political party of Pakistan, and
Yes.
but how do you see this thing? Because there are so many hostile intelligence outfits which are like very much active in Pakistan and especially in Karachi, and how
Yes.
do you take that thing? You know.
Well, I was traveling in the bulletproof, bomb-proof car of the then president of Pakistan, and I was surrounded by this phalanx of armed troopers, a very large number of them. So I wasn't able to do as much roaming around as I have done in the past in the city. And political violence in the city is, of course, not unique to the MQM, to which I shall turn in just a moment. The presence of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan, the presence of the so-called Pakistan Taliban were exploding bombs in cities nearby or in the same province. Whilst I was there was an atrocity against Shia mosque, I think, certainly the Shia community in Quetta, at the same time as I was there. But the reason for guarding me particularly was because for 10 long years I have been trying to force the British government to, first of all, explain why they gave a British passport and citizenship to Altaf Hussain, the leader of the MQM, and more importantly, why they were allowing him to coordinate political violence from London. After all, we're supposedly in the era of anti-terrorism, the war on terrorism. Yet terrorism is being coordinated from London by the leader of the MQM, by a British citizen. So in that sense, I was not interfering in Pakistan's internal affairs. This is a British internal affair. And the British government have singularly failed to explain why this is being allowed to continue. And therefore, speculation about their dark motives has continued. I have never received a proper answer to any of these questions. Of course, I'm no longer in Parliament. I'll no longer be able to pursue it. But it's now a police matter, and the police are closing in on Altaf Hussain. This much I know.
One last comment on your this thing that which I asked earlier, and that was that the hostile countries which are hostile towards Pakistan, their intelligence outfits are very much active in Pakistan, especially in Karachi. What do you have to say about this last sentence, please?
Well, I have no doubt that neighboring countries with hostile intent have their fingerprints on many of the internal problems suffered in Pakistan and by Pakistanis. I don't believe they're the principal reason. They act on pre-existing tensions and divisions and conflicts, but they do act. And of course, there are some who are more than ready to cooperate with them, receive weapons from them, receive money from them, receive other media and technological support from them. Of that I'm in no doubt.
George, I really appreciate you taking out time for me coming on my show.
Not at all. This is the first interview I've given since losing my seat. So it's been nice to talk to you. Thanks for the
The
opportunity.
pleasure is all mine. You're always welcome on my show. Thank you very much once again,
Thank
George. जॉर्ज गैलोवे जी हमारे साथ मौजूद थे, एजाज़ात भी ले चुके हैं पाकिस्तान से, और उनकी जो फीलिंग्स हैं टूवर्ड्स पाकिस्तान एंड स्पेशली टूवर्ड्स द मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी इन ब्रेडफोर्ड वो आपके सामने थी। फिलहाल राना मुबशिर को इजाज़त दीजिए।